Welcome to the 42nd CALLERLAB convention in Springfield, Missouri. This is the hashtag Reboot session. And my name is Betsy Gotta, and I'm your moderator. And our panelist today is Shauna Kaaria. No matter how it looks on paper, that's how she said I should pronounce it. So, a little bit, between the two of us, we do practically everything. Shauna, she said you may know the last name because she's married to Vic Kaaria, who's been calling for over 40 years. Shauna took her first square dance class in high school and then didn't dance again for almost 20 years. She's been a clogging instructor for 35 years, round dance cuer/instructor for 15 years, calling and teaching squares for 7 years, very actively with 3 local clubs for the past 4 years. Recording artist for Fine Tunes, Gold Wings, and Sharpshooter Records with singers targeted for the vocal range of female callers. In real life, she's a financial inventory supply chain analyst, I speak English, for the Toro Company for 25 years. My name is Betsy Gotta. As I said, I'm the moderator. I have been calling for over 50 years, longer than I care to admit at these days, dancing for longer than that. I grew up in square dancing, and I do squares from basically basic through C3 and call contras. I have a husband who does the rounds. I let him take care of something. And so between us, we've worked with a lot of different people in a lot of different groups. And one of the things I'm going to say, this is the reboot. So if you have a group that's in trouble, my lead off is if your group that's in trouble is using the phrase, "We've always done it this way," they need to change that idea. And that's all I'm going to say in the beginning. For now, I'm going to let Shauna take it away, and then we have a remote microphone. If you have questions, please state your name and where you're from, and then ask your question. Please put the questions on the microphone so we can get a good recording.
All right. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time on a panel, so I'm only just a little nervous. The session is called Reboot, How to Revitalize a Club, a Caller, Dance Leaders, and Dancers, and that's a pretty big task, I think. So I looked up the word revitalize. I kind of like data. And it says it means to give new life to give new vitality or vigor to, and it's a verb. And I remember grade school, a verb is an action word. It means we have to do something. And the one thing this session is not going to be is a one-size-fits-all, easy answer, quick fix. Because I don't think one exists. If you're looking for that, I think we need to go to Fantasyland. But that's out at Disneyland where I live. And I think if you're trying something that's not working, then it's time to try something else. So when we look at this, a club, a caller, dance leaders, and dancers, I kind of grouped the club, dance leaders, and dancers together. There's handouts over here if you didn't pick them up. They're on the table over there if you want to follow along. Some like to follow along. Pass them out. So when we're talking about new dancers, we can find new dancers from our current dancers. Our current dancers need to talk it up with their friends. The class that I'm teaching right now, I'm real pleased with this class. It's a pretty good sized class for the area. We had 15, 16 new dancers come in. 2 scores of new dancers in our area is a great class. And they're on the young side. The average age is probably 45. I've got some in their 20s, some in their 30s. And they are excited to be there. And it's really fun to teach at a class like that with young people who are getting excited. And the nucleus of them all came from the same church group. So they knew each other before. And that's kind of the social glue. If they have things besides square dance in common, then they're going to continue to socialize with each other. As far as new leaders, we need to encourage the old regime to embrace new ideas and allow others to lead. And Betsy said, if you've always done it this way. A few years ago, do they still have the suggestions for the CALLERLAB theme? contest each year? A few years ago, I submitted one, and it wasn't really politically correct. But it was that saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And the definition of insanity is to do the same thing the same way and expect a different result. And so I said, the theme should be Stop the Insanity. And they said, that's clever, but I don't think we're going to go there. So, but we do, in some ways, need to stop we need to stop expecting different results by doing the same things. It's a new world. People are connecting different ways. So the dancers that you have need to reach out to their friends, bring their friends in. My dad is in a bowling league. There's a club that has 10 or 12 bowlers in their club because they bowl together, they dance together. And like I said, it's that social glue. Sometimes, to reboot, you need to bring in a fresh face, a new caller. That doesn't necessarily mean that the old caller was doing anything wrong. As Betsy said, I'm married to a caller who's been calling for a number of years. And he's been teaching the same club for a long time. And one of the clubs, they've been talking about what to do. And finally he said, you know what, I think it's time for a fresh face in here. And they agreed to go ahead and do that. It's not that he was doing anything wrong. It was just time for someone new to maybe revitalize in another way. Sometimes it means a new format. Multi-cycle for your classes. I just pulled some of the things we've heard. The Nest, embracing mainstream. The club that I'm teaching for right now, they are a plus club. They want me to get from 0 to plus in a year. We all know that's really difficult to do. For the last 2 years, I have pushed back a little bit, and we've graduated at mainstream. They're still trying to get them to dance plus, and I'll come early and help them out, but we've graduated at mainstream. And I feel like that's kind of a win that I convinced them they're not ready to graduate at plus. And they dance twice a month. 1 month they alternate so that they can bring the new dancers in for one of their dances. As far as that social glue, other activities outside, earlier today, Rick was talking about the first night of class, everybody should have the same name tags, throw the club badges away. I had never heard throw the club badge away the first night. I thought that was an interesting idea, because then the new dancers don't know who is who. And another idea that I saw, because I sit out on Facebook and I look at the groups and watch the arguments and see what's going on. I rarely join because sometimes they're not always efficient or productive, but it's interesting to sometimes see what's going on. And one of the ideas was the first night of class, have them put their name and then list something they do as a hobby. My name is Shauna and I quilt. I don't, but if I did. It's amazing that you get to people start talking about other things besides dancing, what they're there for. That's the social glue that keeps them together. This class that I'm teaching this year, when class is over, they're not leaving. And the club president and I are standing up as I'm tearing down my equipment. He's helping, going, look at this. They're talking to each other. They don't want to go home. And that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. I talked about social media for the club, for the caller. Join the Facebook groups. Create them for your club. One of the most successful clubs in our area, very large, probably 60 or 70 members, and 40 or 50 of them will go out and dance on visitations. They have their own Facebook page. I've joined it, a lot of them have. They post pictures where they are, and they're constantly saying, 36 rogues went here, 28 rogues were here, the rogues went in mass out here. And it's not just where their dances, they go out for other social activities. So again, it's that social glue. And then the last thing I put here is a new dress code. Modest, neat, and clean. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. If somebody wants to wear traditional attire, that's great. If they don't, that's great too. We don't need to say no frou-frou allowed, but we don't have to say you have to wear it either. Then moving on to callers. I don't want to take Betsy's time.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. To revitalize a caller, I'm still pretty new as a caller. I probably don't need to be revitalized yet. I still am really learning. But you'll see this a lot. First one, new music. Invest in your craft. There's new music to be found. I know, I got the music producers back there. Hold on. But not just for yourself, but for your dancers. Probably shouldn't tell this story, but when Vic and I first got married, his girl he dated prior to dating me was also a dance instructor. And he was saying, one of the great things about her classes was she always had new, fresh music. And I was teaching clogging at the time, and I knew the beginning night of class, I play this one, this one, and this one, because they're perfect for teaching the steps to. Well, guess what? That's not the only piece of music that is perfect for teaching that step to. And it challenged me to go find new music. And guess what? I found other new songs I liked. So don't be afraid. Don't get stuck being comfortable. And then with that, you might need a new delivery. I'm still trying to find my delivery in some ways. But in Buddy's session and Jeanette, the different music you're playing requires a different delivery. Sometimes you'll want to be chanting. Sometimes it's just not going to fit with the music that you're playing. And I talked about this root hog or die. I hear that big pig, little pig, root hog or die. I've never said that over the microphone until today. And I probably never will again, because it's just not me. Yeah. I've heard it, in chanting, patter calling, and I won't say who. I won't. Number 3, new music. And I know we said that already. But as far as new music, support the producers who are investing in our craft. Being involved with Fine Tune. And I know the music doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen without a lot of expense and a lot of work. They're going out of their way to create music for us to use, and we need to support their efforts. It doesn't take much to just buy 2 new songs a month. It's going to help you, and it's going to help them, and keep that music coming, because if we're not buying it, it's not going to keep being there. 2 new songs a year? Wow. I say 2 new songs a month. All right. And then as a caller, you can improve and find new skills. Always be a student. Keep learning. You can do that at caller schools, CALLERLAB. Find a mentor, someone who's been doing longer, or somebody who does something that you think is great. Maybe I want to start, I dance through Challenge, but I don't really teach it unless I'm subbing for Vic at a class, in which case I go read his material. And it works for me because I know what to do, and I can correct them, and I can get them out if they're in trouble. But I don't call Challenge, and I don't really even call Advanced, even though I can. If I want to, it's going to be me learning a new skill. And it's something, once I feel I've mastered what I'm working on now, that I intend to do. Find ways to revitalize yourself that way. Network. You guys are all networking because you're here at CALLERLAB. But get out and dance. How many of you to go out and dance just to meet other callers, meet other dancers, meet other dance leaders? You can go to the local dances, go out to weekend festivals. There's one that's about an hour and a half away from my home, and I knew I couldn't get there for the weekend, but I drove out just to dance Saturday night, and it was great. I met a lot of people, and we were pushing a cruise, passed out flyers, sold 2 cruises, and it's a visibility for you, and it also revitalizes your own, I can't find the word, I hate when that happens, attitude and excitement about the activity. That's what I was looking for, excitement. All right, number 6, new music. There's kind of a recurring theme here. You can find music anywhere. The music producers, yes, there's also music to be found on iTunes and Amazon. Listen to the radio. I'm really guilty of that because I get in my rut and I listen to my iPod, which has old music on it. And I listen to talk radio and new songs for a while. The only new songs I knew were the ones that were on Glee. But there was a lot of great music there, and it's like, you know what? I need to start listening to the radio more. As a caller, use social media. Join the Facebook groups for callers. There's a lot of them out there. Did you know there's a group for music, square dance music? How many of you are in those groups? Okay. There's ones for callers. Rick has one, translate square dance calls for me. That one's fascinating because dancers post and they ask questions. And it's visibility for you. It's visibility for your clubs. post pictures of the clubs and what you're doing. And I'll also say be real careful about that, because if we're trying to promote a certain image, we want it to be the right one. So the pictures you post, make sure they're reflecting the activity the way you want it to be seen. Yes?
What, on the microphone?
On the mic.
Hi, I'm Mike Driscoll from Minnesota. What is that group that Dee Bramlett started on Facebook?
Which one?
She started a group, where you can post stuff on Facebook. Dee Bramlett. Yeah, Mike Bramlett from Texas.
I don't know if anybody here knows the group that Dee Bramlett.
On the mic.
Mike Hogan's going to look it up. All right. Mike is going to try to find that for us. But on Facebook, you can search for Square Dance, and that's why when you're posting, and I'm on Facebook a lot, I don't always remember hashtag Square Dance. If people are searching, they might not find it with hashtag Square Dance. They will. So I'm going to try to be better about that. One example, and I would challenge all the teachers to do it because it's kind of fun. Take pictures with your class. I did a class selfie, and it's hard for you to see here, but I do this with my Sunday school class. We take a picture, and my square dancers saw it on Facebook, and they were a little jealous. So we took a class selfie and posted it, and I get a lot of interest with that. And you can see they're very young. It's kind of exciting. Number 7, new music. I know. Join the social media groups out there to discuss music. Like the pages for the music producers. Music producers, how many of you have Facebook pages? Rick's not listening, but he does too. Go find them and then hit the like button. When they post about new music, you'll get visibility for that. And then guess what? Share it. Once you share it, all of your friends will see it. They might not have tons of visibility, and maybe they have 200 or 300 likes on their page. I have over 1,000 friends. That's amazing to me. I know some of them. But if I share their post, 1,000 more people see it. So share the things, get the word out. Join a local caller organization. They're everywhere. And then attend the meetings, share information. If they ask you to do something, do it. You guys are laughing back there. Did you find the group?
We're still working.
It makes me nervous when Rick is laughing. I know. All right. Also, caller training. I talked about learning new things. Support the newer callers. If you've been around for a while, or even if you haven't, share what you know. Offer assistance. Be a mentor. I told you to find a mentor. Be a mentor for someone else. I've been teaching dance and classes since I was a teenager. And they're not kidding when they say the best way to learn is to teach. You learn so much by teaching. So find someone that you can share information with and do that. And then finally on this list, again, is music. And this one I didn't say new music. In my opinion, there is nothing more powerful than music to affect the way we feel. And I know that is true. Whether you're using new music, old music, use it wisely, because music really is your most powerful tool. Like I said, before I turn this back to Betsy, there really isn't a one-size-fits-all fix. And I kind of joked, this isn't Fantasyland because we're not at Disneyland. But then I was thinking about that earlier, a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, we're not at Disneyland, but in a way maybe we are. I thought about the lands at Disneyland. Fantasyland. Some people think we don't have problems. Everything is fine. They're in Fantasyland, I think. If you think there's an easy fix, Fantasyland. I prefer to think Fantasyland of the place where it's happily ever after. We can make it better, and it's going to be okay in the end. What about Frontierland? Do we have Frontierland in Square Dance Calling? I think so. The old school, old ways, old dress codes, old music. It has its place, but maybe just a tip a night, maybe a certain club, maybe a theme. It's just one of the aspects of the dance. Adventureland, That's where we get to have fun. Be adventurous, try new things, dare to be different, stop the insanity, do something different, share your successes. And then New Orleans Square, I thought about that for a little bit. I thought Square, there should be something. But when you go to New Orleans, what are you doing? You're having fun. Should be fun. Your party nights. All the things we do, the social networking, the social glue, getting out and partying with your club outside of the square dance. The friends. New Orleans Square is all about the fun. And then there's Toontown. And I don't think of it as cartoon. I think of it as tunes, T-U-N-E, your new music again. Because it's all about that music. Music. It's all about the music. And then my favorite actually is Main Street. And I was talking to somebody about this and whether I should play with the Disneyland lands. And he says, what are you going to do for Main Street? Well, Main Street is mainstream. We need to focus on mainstream. Get the clubs excited about mainstream. It's Main Street. And he says, Main Street's the most boring place at Disneyland. And I said, oh, no, it is not. I've been to Disneyland. I had a pass for a few years, and I traded pins for a few years and was kind of obsessed with that. So I know all the back corners of Main Street. If you focus on mainstream and peel back the layers and find all the things you can do with it, it is not the most boring place in Disneyland. There's great things to find and great things to do. Nuggets that you would never find otherwise. And then finally, Tomorrowland, that's the future. I think that's to be determined. But what it is up to us. And we, as leaders, need to lead the way. And even though at Disneyland they're all separate lands, they all work together to become that magic kingdom.
All right. I see some questions. Do you want to run the microphone?
Yeah, I'm David Fullaway, and I'm a caller and club president, etc. on Maui. And I think this is one of the greatest presentations I've seen with a blueprint of what to do. And I'd like to add a couple things. On the top I put down, first of all, most of us are callers and involved and already doing an awful lot of work. To do all these things, we need a lot of help from all our clubs that we represent. So I'm going to stand and send this to our board, which is the board of USA West, which is made up of club people and club presidents, and for club distribution, so that our clubs all the way down the line will get this. I added a couple things that I thought are also equally important. Caller training, get out and support the new callers or create new callers. Seek out and call at and for different groups. I added that down at the bottom. A new dress code, we've talked about that a little earlier at a workshop. Don't forget the old CALLERLAB standards or standards for dress, but also include and allow and embrace modest, neat, and clean. Very good. Thank you very much.
Do you want to get their information about that? Go ahead. Give it to Buddy first. Buddy's pouting. Give it to him first.
It's about time you respect your elders. I am Buddy, and I'm here to just say I really enjoyed what you had to say, and I like the idea of a caller not being afraid to step away from his club. And I would like to say to you that what I've been doing over the last 2 years, I call for a few clubs in my area, and every time they have an election, I tender by resignation. Period. I say, I'm just letting you know I'm going to be resigning when your new officers come in. And they'll say, what's the matter? What's the matter? I said, there's nothing, absolutely nothing the matter. I just want to clear the deck so that if you have someone you'd rather come in and take over, no hard feelings. It's easy for you to do that. And every single club has come back and said, we want you to come back and renew. I said, great, I'll renew for you for another year. And on your next elections, you'll expect my resignation. And I think that every caller should do that. And if you're afraid of not getting hired back, then maybe you should be afraid of not getting hired back. It might be time to reboot yourself. Thank you.
I'm Rick Hampton, younger than Buddy Weaver. And in social media, somebody had asked earlier about a particular Facebook group. I couldn't find that one. I found Mike's site. I couldn't find hers. But if you just, in your Facebook search box, type in just SQ, and you will see 10 or 15. You might have to look in various places in there, but you'll see 10 or 15 hits. Many will say square dance. Some might, talk about, I don't know, Times Square or whatever. And then if you pick one of those and you look at the members on that, join that group, and it's amazing how quickly you can get interconnected. Also, I know a lot of people have commented, it's like, we don't want to do Facebook. We can't stand all those game requests. It's real easy to fix every time you get one. Just on the right-hand side, you click, and just say, block this app. And it says you want to block all invites from that Candy Crush. It'll do that. It takes about 2 weeks to get rid of all of them. I haven't had a request in a long time.
Okay, well, I'm going to move ahead, and I have a lot of the same ideas as Shauna and a few that I expressed differently. Probably the same thing said a different way, but that may make a difference. My first thing is, and Shauna kind of touched on this, nurture the new members. How many times do we do a class and have them kind of squashed like a bug by some well-meaning person who says the wrong thing? We need to feel how they feel and put ourselves in their places. Include the new members in your club dances by inviting them to dances while they're still in class. And our club, my home club, was a college-age group for many, many, many years. We left campus somewhere in the early 90s, and we developed into a family club. We made specific changes to make that happen, because otherwise we would not be here. And I have to brag a little bit. We celebrated our 60th anniversary last June. We ordered 200 dangles. We ran out with that many people visiting. We had a live band. The best band we could find was a contra dance band, so we adapted slightly to a different style of patter music, and they played singing squares, a lot of which were kind of old time, but we don't always use old time music, so for the dancers it was different. But it took work to adapt to working with the band, because they had never played for a square dance. And what was really interesting was we changed their perception of square dances, because we were different looking than what they expected. They told me that during the dance. So this worked both ways. If needed, change your dance format to alternate basic mainstream tips or mainstream plus tips. Our club happens to be mainstream. In New Jersey, we have, I can think of 3 clubs that dance mainstream in northern New Jersey area, and they worked hard to continue, rather than being overwhelmed by let's dance plus. Some of them may have 1 plus tip per night. Ours does not. But we had no other night for lessons, so what we did for adapting was to teach lessons for an hour before the club dance on first and third Sunday afternoons. After that, every other tip at the club dance is wherever the students are. So we blend them into the group before they ever graduate. Now, in order to do this, the club members had to buy into it. They had to be willing not to sit there and kind of stare at the people who were new, but to get up and dance with them. And we talked to them and said, this club was down to about 2 squares, 3 squares if we had a raid from another group. And maybe one of the squares was dancing and the rest were socializing, and it was really kind of boring. And we started doing the lessons this way, and we basically told the club members, if you don't dance with these people and don't make them feel welcome, you won't have a place to dance in a few more years, period. And it worked. And now we dance, and I'm not sure how many people are members. I'd have to look, but my friend Ginny, who does the treasury books and keeps the books, said we're the largest club in northern New Jersey right now. I do not know how many that is, but we dance 6 to 8 squares on a regular basis. Some of them are guests from the other clubs. The clubs near us that dance plus, when their folks reach mainstream, they send them over to us on Sunday afternoons to practice. And then they'll go and learn plus at the classes that are continuing for the plus club, but they get mainstream practice and makes them better and become more comfortable dancers. So I said make sure the new dancers are spread throughout the squares. We all know as callers, if you have new dancers invited to the dance, where are they? They're congregating somewhere in the back of the room, cowering together in one group where they can't help each other. Mix them if you have to. Promenade in one big circle and mix them around. Have the heads pass through and promenade to another square. Get them away from each other because they will not dance comfortably with each other. Figure out some other way to get them involved. Talk to the new dancers. I said students on the handout. I should have said new dancers, but talk to them. Find out their names and their interests, same as what Shauna said. You'll find and then you can go, oh, you quilt. Well, my friend Ginny quilts. And introduce those people. Get a common bond. I've heard of people saying they talked all year about their class, and they couldn't name one person in the class. That makes the people a group, not individuals. Learn how to help. If you're angeling a class, learn how to help without intimidating. What happens when people get excited? Their voices go up. They get loud. They start waving their hands. How intimidating is that when you're trying to help somebody? Learn to say, I need you. Over here. And if the square breaks down, let it break down. Rather than grabbing whoever you need and yanking them into position, which I have seen done. I'm on the stage and I watch these things, and it's not a pretty sight. Learn and teach your angels. If you're doing lessons, invite the angels and teach them and tell them, sensitize them to the fact that the new dancers need gentle treatment. They're scared to death. I truly believe at a class dance where you invite people out to dance and they've all partway through lessons, I believe that if the ceiling fell down, a tile fell from the ceiling, several new dancers would be going, oh, I'm so sorry. They're that scared. We have no idea. Those of us who've danced a while have no idea how petrified these people are to make a mistake and break down the square. Take the new dances to a class dance. When I say a class dance, in our area, the Northern New Jersey Association has a midterm dance partway through. It's the end of January usually. And the Callers Association has another dance specifically for people in lessons, newer dancers and angels, a month later. If your classes, if there's any of these in the area, don't just tell the dancers about them. They aren't comfortable traveling yet. Say, I'm going to pick you up, Mike, and I'm going to take you to this dance. You're going to have a great time. I'll make sure you dance. And, if your partner can't come, we'll make sure you have partners all the way through. And take care of people. Don't just say, here, Mike, come to this dance. Here's a flyer. Bring them along. And your clubs, plan some different formats for fun. Theme nights, such as pajama nights, silly socks or hats, a toga party. We just had a toga party because we danced on March 15th. It's the Ides of March. And our club president kept insisting we should have togas. And several people did come out in one form of toga or another. And we've gotten more. We're trying very hard now to put the club on Facebook. So somebody filmed things and it got on Facebook or YouTube. And I know that I mentioned this at a table at lunch somewhere. And Tim Mariner says, oh, yeah, I saw that. So our toga party is somewhere on the Internet. Silly tips. We tried dancing on bubble wrap. That may or may not be a good idea. It was a little fun, but it was also a little slippery. So judge your age before you dance on bubble wrap, and make sure you tape it well to the floor. No hands dancing. That's very, very hard. So you make it very easy and make the choreography very easy, but all of a sudden they're really working to dance with no hands. inflate some balloons and have the square try and keep them up for as long as possible as they're dancing. Dancing blindfold. Do not let everyone in the square put on a blindfold. It doesn't work. Everyone's afraid to reach out for fear they may grab the wrong thing. Dancing Gemini. Does everybody know what Gemini would be? That would be two people dancing as one. Those of us who learned to dance as kids, when we didn't have enough for a second square, we'd jump in. I am always better as a left-hand dancer. I want to be the left-hand dancer. And they get somebody else to be. So Sean and I, if we were dancing Gemini, would be like this, and we would be one person. Twins. Gemini is the twins, exactly. Bobsey twins. Okay. Same principle. But have them dance that. We have some younger people in our group. They come and go, but when they were there one time, I was watching, and a couple didn't get into the square, so that square started with eight people. It grew to 10. I believe before the end of the tip, it grew to 15. And they were keeping up with the rest of the club. Social happenings. Encourage dancers to go out after the dance for a snack or a beverage. Please make sure to invite the new members specifically. A lot of times they feel like, well, nobody invited me. I'm not sure if they want me to come. Make sure that you let them know, we want you to join us. We're going to do this. Schedule a club picnic or other activities. What about scheduling a flash mob to dance at the mall? We used to have in our club, a Marine. He was the boyfriend of one of our, well, how do I explain that? One of our second generation. Because when we left the college campus, the people who started in college, several of them stayed with us. We made accommodations so they could dance and bring the kids to play in the corner and all of this stuff. And so I'm saying all this like it's nothing. But how many clubs would be totally resistant to these ideas? There was an expandable playpen in the back of our hall for quite a while, and I'm sure there are more snapshots of adults in that expandable playpen than the kids, but we had it there for them. So we raised some people to dance, and then they got out of it, and then they were getting interested again, but this one girl, Kim, wanted to bring her boyfriend, Dean, and he's like, no. And Kim's mom, Karen, did a favor for Dean, and he made the mistake of saying, I owe you, I'll do anything. So Karen said, you have to try square dancing one time. So Kim walked in with Dean, and Karen had warned me, and I had picked music that I thought Dean would relate to, rather than the variety I might have picked otherwise. I specifically targeted stuff that I thought he would like to dance. And he dances. For a while, we had our Toys for Tots dance with Marine group in full dress uniforms. But now he got transferred to Texas, so nobody was there to pick up our toys. So we arranged to bring the toys to where the Marines are in the mall to dump them off, and we staged a flash mob dance. We didn't do it very well. I've studied some others since then. I know how I want to do it the next time. But at least we gathered in a group, and we had people in a variety of clothing, from crinolines to prairie skirts to slacks and jeans. And I mean, that's all women and men and different things. No men in skirts at that point. I saw you thinking. But we had people in a variety of clothing, and we just at a certain point squared up and started dancing. There are a couple things we do differently now. I would have people start in groups of maybe 2 with a circle left or a two-hand star, and then people join in. We started as a full square. It's not it doesn't look quite as spontaneous. So study how to do a flash mob so that you do it well. Yes. The best thing is to get permission. I'm not sure we did, but I know I worked this club with a co-caller queuer couple. Whew, that's tough to say. And Kathy went out and made arrangements, and I'm not sure if she notified them all. She notified the restaurant that we were coming. And we kept it very short so the mall security didn't catch us. Right, it's only illegal if you get caught. I don't want it on YouTube with all of us going away in handcuffs. But do something. Put the videos on YouTube. Put them on Facebook. Put them out. Tweet. I am on Twitter. I haven't done anything with it. But that's part of my goal, is to expand. As soon as I get rid of a couple of other jobs, I'm going to expand my presence on the Internet. And I know other people are tweeting about our club, and because I get people saying, "Oh, I saw what you were doing." It's so important. Where did Mike and Ron go? Ron? Yeah. Where did they go to find out about that? They went to somebody's phone and started looking on the Internet. Where do people go to find out things these days? They pull out their phone or their device or whatever, and away they go on the Internet. Callers, work on your skills. And here's the thing that I feel is the most important thing for callers to work on their skills. If you are working with new dancers, callers, learn how to work comfortably with the calls contained in the basic and mainstream programs. Learn how to be able to call a smooth dance that feels like a dance with 5 calls, with 10 calls, with 20 calls. Please, please learn how to change a figure in a singing call so that you can use the music you want with the calls that they know. I have heard more than once, I have not yet killed anyone, but I have heard more than once a caller say, "I'm going to teach you trade by so I can use this singing call." They're never going to succeed. You just took away the pleasure of the singing call because they haven't responded. They can't respond well enough to the call to dance the singing call if it's properly timed. They will fail.
What time is your session tomorrow, Rick?
Rick?
There's a session on translating singing calls tomorrow morning.
Yes.
So
refiguring singing calls, I believe, isn't it, Rick? I don't have that with me.
I will check my guidebook.
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
9 o'clock in Kansas City, we will talk about reconfiguring singing calls. In other words, you can do trade by at least 2 of them.
We will.
Rick, you're not on the microphone.
Right. Rick will be there. There's going to be a program on refiguring singing calls, so you can change the figure. I do singing calls when I do beginner parties from tip 1. If you can't do it, you got a comment over there. Where are my time? Yeah.
And there are on the net books, Mike Driscoll from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. There are books on the Internet on singing calls, different varieties of singing calls. You can get just about anything you want, from really, really easy to really, really hard.
Yes. There's lots of different ways to find it. So.
Erin has something.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I had to go get a new battery for my oxygen, but way back when you were talking about new music and you were saying listen to the radio and stuff, you don't necessarily have to. I find about 80% of Scott's pattern music, and I usually hear it while I'm sitting in a restaurant listening to the music that they're playing, or I'm walking through a store and I hear the music, and that's when it grabs me. Mm-hmm. I'm not specifically listening to one. I did actually buy him a new piece last week because I was looking at your Facebook post about how you were listening to Christopher Cross on the way to work. And right while I was reading it, a Christopher Cross song came over the radio in the restaurant, and I went, that would be great pattern music. So just keep your ears open. Yeah.
I keep a notebook, a little pad. And, because I spend a lot of time in my car, and I keep a little pad, and then, if I hear something, and I will do, what do I call, radio roulette sometimes. Although right now I'm just enjoying my new Sirius radio. But I'll do radio roulette, where I'll just kind of hit scan, stop the thing, and listen for a while. Or we have a couple of college stations near us, and I will listen to those stations so I can hear something else other than what I might choose to listen to. And then I keep a notepad. My problem is follow-up. I'll have a lot of lists of things. I don't have time sometimes. I don't have time to download them. I don't have time to get them on the computer I use for calling and edit them the way I want. I have a couple more things before we open this up. Research music that goes with a theme. If if the club is doing a theme, care enough to pick a couple of songs that will fit with that theme. And sometimes there's nothing that will do there, that will work, but then you can do something silly. One club had a theme of pink, and I wasn't calling to pink at that point in time, but it was when the pink robin comes bobbing along. That's pretty stupid, but they thought it was funny and they had a good time. And so there's no dignity there. They had a good time. Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, spring, fall, Halloween. I said this earlier, work on a way to mix dancers without being obvious. Mix the type of music. Don't just all play the same. And if you get a new piece, folks, and you're really enthusiastic about it, and you're calling it a weekend or a couple of dances in a row, don't use it over and over and over and over. We were recently at a weekend, and we were dancing, and one of the callers was using, "It's all about the bass, about the bass, about the bass." That's great for the first 4 times in a weekend. After 4 times, it was 1 time and 2 times and 3 more times too many, folks. I don't care how much you like it. Use something else.
That one is good for at least 100.
Not in the same weekend. Not in the same weekend.
It's all about that bass.
The next time on the cue sheet, we'll put limit 4 times per week.
Limit 4 per weekend.
All right, we're out of control here. But I'm serious. And if you go to a national convention, bring more than one piece of music that you care to, put. If you have your little iPod or whatever, have a group of things, because there have been times when the same song was done every hour, sometimes twice in an hour, in the same room. I don't care how good it is, guys, and there are some that I love. Dancers don't want to hear it over and over and over again. There's more comments.
Karen Patterson from Southwest New Mexico. We did a prom on your theme dance kind of thing, and the way we mixed up the dancers that night was every lady had a dance card. And as the gentleman came in that night, they had to sign up for your dance card, and you couldn't put your partner on your dance card. He was only allowed to fill in if there was an empty spot.
What, you want it?
No, go ahead.
You sure?
No, please.
Okay. Rick Hampton, Visalia, California. Betsy, a couple minutes ago, was speaking of listen to the radio and the follow-up of being able to find music. If you get a little app for your smartphone called Shazam, okay? So you're listening to, I don't know, what's a good station in Omaha?
103.7.
Okay, so listen to the Cat in Omaha, who's going through, it's 103.7. And you hear this great song, but you have no idea what it is. So you break out Shazam and you just click listen. And about 15, 20 seconds later, you look at it and there's the title, artist, and everything. In fact, you can hit a button to buy it. It gets downloaded to your phone. When you get home, you can transfer it to your laptop. Done deal.
Be careful about doing all that, looking at it when you're driving.
No, that's all right. Don't worry about that. Just don't text.
I'm Mike Hogan from Omaha, Nebraska. There's also an app called SoundHound. It does the same thing. These smartphones it's amazing that they're smart. It's amazing that they even call them phones because you don't do much with them. What I was going to say is on your theme dances, if you're on Facebook, well, first, if you're not on Facebook, get on Facebook. Once you're on Facebook, there's a group called Square Dance Callers. It's just called Square Dance Callers. So, and I see this all the time. There's guys that are doing a theme and they have no idea what kind of music. Anybody got any ideas? Get on Square Dance Callers. You post, hey, we're doing a Mardi Gras themed, and does anybody have any ideas for music? You'll get amazing answers from, tons and tons of callers that have years and years of experience. So it's a great resource if you need help with any of those kinds of things. It's on Facebook, and it's called Square Dance Callers. That's the group. Okay.
Well, thank you for listening to the radio. Great radio. Mike Oliveri from Denver. Along the same line of not using the same music, I've developed a form that I print on the back of my contracts. And my wife is kind enough to keep track of all my music that I do at every dance, both patter and singing call. So when I go back to that club to call the next dance, in their little folder for that particular club, I have a track of all my music so I don't repeat the same music. And so I do different music at every dance. Also, in your flash dance, your flash mob dance, new initiatives, which I'm the chairman of, 9 o'clock again tomorrow morning. On the website, there is how to do a flash mob dance. The 2 or 3 clubs that I've interviewed that have done them, and the one that did it correctly by getting permission and did everything fine, and the other one that got shut down by security and then do it by permission. So if you want to know how to do it, it's on the CALLERLAB website.
I actually keep notebooks, but I like it on the back of the contract. I may change that. More easily referred to.
I don't do it because I don't call as many dances as Vic does, but he uses not Square View. He doesn't use Square View. It's the SUMP3, Dave Wilson's. But Square View probably does the same thing. He goes to the trouble to create a different folder, a playlist, favorites for each club. And when you play it, it makes it yellow. And so when he goes to that club, he goes to that folder, and he knows all the music he's done at that club, so he doesn't repeat unless somebody specifically requests.
Where are we on time? Yeah. So, basically our whole idea is don't do it the same way over and over again and expect different results. Try and reach out to people, get on the internet, change your format, and nurture new students. Work on, if your area has no mainstream, start working on getting mainstream so the dancers have a place to dance. Make it feel like a dance. Callers, make it feel like a dance. We have somewhere in some discussion recently we were talking, it was the leadership seminar, the community dance leadership seminar. Somebody made the comment that they were at some lesson. It wasn't a beginner party, it was some lesson. And in the 2.5-hour lesson, the music was played for 10 minutes. I know. Well, I've heard that. I don't believe it, but I've heard it. So I expect that you are right, Rick, that it is typical, but don't be one of those callers. Make it feel like a dance. Learn to teach as efficiently as possible and get the music back on so they can be dancing. During my lessons, most of the time, every tip has a patter and a singing call to make it feel like a dance. But that is truly because I'm comfortable doing singing calls with a limited number of basics, to get back to that theme. And the callers who can't don't do singing calls. The dancers miss all of that experience. And Scott Brown was saying in his teaching order, the singing calls provide a good reinforcement of what's been going on. I feel the same way, and I feel that it also, I don't care how much you are trying to get the dancers to dance up to speed in a class, and I don't care whether this class is beginner or plus or on whatever. When you're teaching, you kind of tailor the choreography a little bit to how fast the dancers are reacting. And so when they graduate, they can't dance up to speed because we haven't created a way for them to do that. Singing calls force you to make them dance up to speed so they can be comfortable. Yeah, another comment. Here.
Sue White from Arkansas. Listening to Betsy talk about singing calls and new dancers, it came to me that I didn't understand the format of a singing call until I had been dancing for many years. So I think that should be part of the initial teaching, is to teach the new dancers the usual format of a singing call. You know, that there's an opener and a closer and so forth. I think that would be helpful.
Let them know what to expect.
Betsy, I want to go back to your opening statement. What happens when you run into a club that you're the club caller for, and this is the way we've done it for years, and we're not going to change, but how do we get more dancers to our dance? And as a new club caller, you make recommendations, and they fight you tooth and nail. Anybody have any ideas?
Buddy and then Rick.
It's my opinion, and in my humble opinion, sometimes you're going to spend more precious resources trying to convince somebody to do something they absolutely will not do. And there's something in the world I call evolution. And dinosaurs don't roam the earth today for various reasons. And I do believe that that's what happens in some cases to some square dance clubs. If you refuse to change, that's what happens. And I think that your resources are wasted if you go in there and go head to head, toe to toe with somebody who is insistent upon doing the same thing no matter what. I would rather see this die than see it change. That's just my opinion. My opinion further would be resign.
All of that should be handled during your contract negotiation. Don't sign the contract if they're that boar-headed. If you get yourself stuck in there, or if you've been led to believe that it's going to be one way and it's another, resign, quit, leave. Tell the dancers why. Don't tell, if it's a the folks we have to worry about are the folks who are out there dancing, not the ones who are in the kitchen. Especially if they're not kitchening, but they're in there jabbering. They're not the folks that are at the meeting but never come to the dance. They're the people who are out there, and you say square up and actually get out there. Anything that interferes with that is killing us. So.
Yeah, David Fullaway, Maui. It took my club, which was a dying club about 3 years ago. People got older and died or moved, and so we got small. We had to do a lot of these things. And it took us about 2.5 years to get my old dancers that were left to get excited when the music went on and jump up to dance. At that time, to 3 years ago, they only wanted to square dance. Over those 2.5 or 3 years, I started introducing a little bit of contra. I've got a line dance going, simple line dances, round dances, and use of mixers. And got all my members excited about getting up, and if there's any new visitors, getting them up. But it took 2.5 years to create that change, following a lot of these reboot ideas that are right here.
Yeah, Shauna was saying something about she had a theme that wasn't politically correct.
Stop the insanity, yeah.
Yeah, stop the insanity. We did, in northern New Jersey, we did a leadership seminar, which was aimed at the dance leaders to try and get people to get some new ideas. And I'm not sure if they followed through, but the working title was Evolve or Die.
That's what it's going to come down to. Buddy, I really like your idea of resigning every time that there's a new board or club, officer thing. I really like that. This club is kind of strange in the fact that they won't travel to visit other clubs, but they expect everybody else to come to them. And then they don't understand why they don't. And if a club does come up and steal their banner, it may take 6 to 8 months for them to go get it back, just because they don't want to travel 15 miles. So it's and trying to get different ideas past them. First night of lessons when I took over, well, that's not the way so-and-so used to do it. I'm not so-and-so. Okay? So there's a lot of resentment, a lot of resistance, and I'm trying to get new ideas out there, and it's just not happening.
This is Buddy again, and let me come back and kind of focus in on what I'd said earlier too. I sometimes think that we think that a club, when we say this club is not going to do this, or this club is going to dig their heels in, we tend to think that there's a consensus, and I don't think that's always necessarily true. I believe a buddy of mine told me years ago, he said, it only takes one bad president to kill a club. And I believe that's true in many, many instances. I've seen callers, friends of mine, who quit after being with a club for 30 years. And I said, why are you doing this? He says, I don't like the president. I said, you and I have seen these guys come and go. Ride it out. But let's not punish the dancers for one or two fools who are in a position that they should not be in. And I say this with all due respect. I respect the fact that these folks are volunteering, but sometimes they're just not putting the good of everyone ahead of their own self-interest. So that being said, you might be going toe-to-toe with one or two people who don't want to change. But you might find that when you cut away the vocal minority, you might find the majority of folks out there who are open to new ideas and who are willing to change.
They're usually the most silent. You can say it. Scott Bennett, Oklahoma. Usually that majority that's in the middle, they're the ones that never say anything. So if you don't go out and speak to them and get them interacting, you have no idea what they think. You got one group that's going to say to you, everything's wonderful. You got another group that says everything's horrible. The ones in the middle are the ones you need to talk to.
And sometimes here again, you don't want to pit one against the other. The last thing that I think we need in square dancing today is divisiveness. We don't need that. We need to have a sense of that live and let live. If you want to go out and start a basics club or whatever you decide to do, everybody should be on board with that. I just caution anybody against getting involved with a lot of fighting to get somebody to change. If somebody's so dug in and entrenched in not changing, you're better off taking the goodwill, the positive thoughts, put the sun in your face, put the wind at your back, and go out there and find an area that doesn't have a square dance program. And I guarantee you there are a lot of them out there right now. And start it. And you'll find one or two people who are from an existing group who will be your biggest fans, who will become the nucleus of your new club, and will create the tipping point to success.
Two up front. While Shauna's running the microphone, I'm going to say, I just had a thought, Mike. They've always done it this way. They're naysaying what your new ideas are. Have you asked them, to think of any new ideas that they feel you could implement? Put it back on them. Say, look, are you totally satisfied with how this club is going? I feel we need new ideas. Can you think of some that you'd like me to try? Put it back on them.
Mike Hogan again. You guys are here. We as square dance callers are involved with our club 30 years, and we see presidents come and go. And you guys are here getting educated, learning about new things that are happening and new ideas, what's working in different parts of the country, what's not working in different parts of the country. So I encourage you, even though you're contracted every year, to be a leader with your group. You have the background knowledge that chances are very few of your club members actually have. So you can bring them ideas. You can't enforce them necessarily, but you can bring them ideas. Buddy stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'm gonna hit it anyway. There was a study that I'm aware of that happened in this last year in a community in the country here, and it was done by a university. One of the very clear lines that they had in their discovery was that the current system, the current clubs in that area, the members of those clubs would rather die than change. And I think you see that probably in more of a minority than we think. There's probably a lot of people in our clubs that would like to make some changes. Change happens because of a need. They are so used to the way that their clubs are run and how they dance, and they're very comfortable with it because change is difficult for people. And the older the dancer, the older the person, the more likely it is that they're going to be resistant to that change. So work with your clubs to be a leader to try and help create change so that we're working in a positive direction. And be open to the idea that you may have to give up and say, this club, because, I mean, if all of your members are, say, an average age of 75, and they like it exactly the way that it is, they don't want you to play the new music. They don't want to change the dress code. They would rather die than change. So be it if that's the case. If you've done your work and you know that that's the case, I'm not saying just quit, although I think offering the resignation once a year is a nice idea. But I would suggest to you that let that club live out its course and die a graceful death. And in the meantime, if you want to continue to call, that's the time that you need to go out and start a new group. And you can start a new group. We're talking about trying to lower the average age of dancers. There's a generation issue. I have a lady that I work with that came to my lessons. I invited her. She's done lots of different dance all her life. She came to my beginner class the first night, had a great time, tried to recruit several of her friends to square dance who wouldn't, and so she didn't come back. And when I asked her why, she said, I had a fantastic time, but I just don't fit in. Your dancers are too old for me. She didn't fit in because of the age group. She's 58. And our dance group was too old for her. So I'm not saying kill off your club, but at some point we've got to go out and we've got to start new clubs with younger people who all feel very comfortable with each other. How exactly we do that, I'm still working on. But I've got a lot of ideas. So I would encourage you to do both. Be a leader with your home club and be open-minded to starting brand new groups.
Yeah, Rick again. We have someone, well, many have said we have to be leaders as callers, and we do. It is truly mission critical if square dancing as any kind of national, statewide, or international activity is to continue. We have to be leaders. The only other alternative is everything you see around us collapses, and what we have is we have a club here called by so-and-so and a club way over there that's called, in other words, back to where it was prior to CALLERLAB. Okay? It seems kind of silly after 40-some-odd years of working on this stuff that we should be at the same point we started at, but it's kind of where we're at. A lot of the reasons that CALLERLAB came about, among other things, lack of standardization, lack of communication, not being happy with Bob Osgood's list of calls and a few things like that. And we're getting to the point where we're having the same issues currently. So if a club wants to do something that you know is a bad idea, you've got two choices. You either need to, with your own standards, say that there's a place that I'm comfortable meeting you in the middle, but there's a line where I just will not go below it, and I'm not going to work for you. Like I say, I try to get that out of the way before the class starts. But there are sometimes, if a class says, how about if we teach in a bar? I'd say, let's do it. Which bar, what time? If they were to say, I want to teach people how to go to plus in 12 weeks, I would say, you're going to have to get somebody else because that's impossible. Thank you.
Hi. I know that those of you who have attended CALLERLAB before have heard this idea, but there may be some people who haven't, so I'm going to throw it out there one more time. When we come to convention, we get the direction that has the entire program with a list of the sessions and a description. I take mine, I separate out the paperclip staple, and I put each one in a plastic sleeve, put it into a binder, and I take it to the dances with me, and I say, I just attended CALLERLAB, and I want you to be able to see what we were doing at CALLERLAB. Why don't you look at what the program is? Because the majority of people, I got tired of the folks at home asking me, well, what did you do to the lists in the 3 days that you were at CALLERLAB? We don't spend 3 days tinkering with the lists, folks. We do a lot of education. Dancers don't know that. And maybe if you put the ideas out, the dancers will then... Part of the resistance to change is because the dancers don't like an idea that somebody else gives. But maybe if they read it in the direction, they can think of it as their own idea, and then they'll present it to you. And maybe we'll get a change made that way. Maybe it won't work, but at least you've gotten some people into the idea that CALLERLAB is not all about the lists or the bass, but not all about the lists and the programs / levels, but it's about caller education and making square dancing better for the world, and that's what we're looking to do. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost that much. I use the same binder each year and take out the old direction and put it in next year's program or this year's program. But let the dancers see it. It kind of opens their eyes.
Final thoughts from me. I think we're almost out of time. Just a reminder, I don't think there's an easy answer that's going to be the right answer for every group. There's lots of different problems, and with the different ages, some people might be happy with their older group and they just want to do the same thing week after week. If that's working for them, that's okay. Find something to try. If you need to try something, find something, try it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Just do something. The Facebook groups, the only reason I don't engage too much is the contention that sometimes happens is uncomfortable to me. So I was going through my packet, there was an article by Barry about agreeable disagreeing and how we can communicate with each other in a positive way even when we don't agree. When you get out on Facebook, I would encourage you to be positive in your somebody says, hey, I think we should have competition. Well, my group would really not like that, but that might be a great idea for another area. So just because it's not your thing, don't say that's dumb, it'll never work. It might not for you, but it might work somewhere else. So just be open and try to be positive and try new things, because like I said, there's not one answer. There's a lot of different answers working together in each area.
Yeah. Actually, it's even worse over the computer, because if you talk to people face to face, you can sometimes see their body language or whatever. When you're on email or Facebook or whatever, you lose those nuances, and all of a sudden, people are shouting back and forth in amazing caps lines. Yes. Exactly. So be aware of that when you're... And
be aware, too, that even though it says square dance callers, there are a lot of dancers in those groups. And it's public. A lot of people you can just join in their public groups. Be aware that the things that we're saying out there are being read by dancers at large and anybody who wants to go look at it. So be professional, be respectful, and be positive.
It's also there forever.
And it's forever.
Also there forever.
Well, you can delete your own. You can go delete your own comments if you choose. You don't know who cut and pasted it before you did. That's true.
Okay. Well, we thank you all for being here and for caring and whatever. We hope we've given you some ideas. If you think we should do this again in a future convention, put that on your critique sheet, because the executive committee reads every critique sheet and listens to every session, and that's how they plan future conventions. So it's important for you to turn in those critique sheets. They aren't just thrown in the trash and shredded. They are read and perused. That's my $10 word of the day.